5 seconds remaining.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Join Dota League Season 5 Division 1-2. It's a best of 3 between Complexity Gaming and Leviathan, and in a stunning display of punctuality, we are starting exactly on time for the first time in Dota ever. I'm Mikelorus, going to be one of your casters. GrandisV is here as well. I am so hyped for this series, man. I haven't casted Complexity in so long, and I don't even know if I've casted Complexity in this current form with all these players.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I've seen them around every once in a while, and well, I've also seen Leviathan around. They're a lot of fun to cast, and every once in a while we get to be, I don't know, grazed by a couple of very peculiar picks and a very aggressive playstyle. I don't know, it should be a very entertaining series, to say the least. But honestly, I think Dota 2 Lounge is not giving Leviathan enough credit. Currently, the odds sit at 30% to 70%, and I think this game should be closer to 60-40 if there's any advantage at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like disrespect Leviathan or anything, but those odds are probably based off of the fact that Complexity have beaten Leviathan in like every single game that they've, or every single match that they have gone up against each other in recent history. So like, you just gotta base it off the history, I suppose. Complexity have Leviathan's number, and Leviathan, though they are very good, if they have your number, then you can't take it away from them. Complexity know Leviathan, and they know how to beat them. So I would say Leviathan are a great team, but maybe just not up against Complexity. But we do see an Enigma ban out, Zeus being banned out as well, because these two teams do know each other a little bit more than others. They would probably have a little bit of the metagaming picks and bans going on here, like that one, Lina first pick.
Yeah, well, for the time being, Lina first pick is reasonable enough. It's going to give Complexity a solid mid with a lot of burst damage, but most surprising to me, at the very least, is that we have Axe still in the pool and a lot of really high-tier heroes, all things considered, since we do see Zeus and Enigma first banned out.
Alright, so with all these kind of rarer heroes being banned out, against Alina, I think it's an okay opening from Complexity. We actually did see Alina first pick previously, and that team ended up losing with a Lina Sand King opening. I don't know if Complexity are going to be doing something like that. It seems doubtful, but Batrider and Vengeful Spirit are both in the pool right now, and it's great when you grab those two heroes together, and there's half of it. Leviathan, are you going to go for both? I don't think you're going to pick up the Batrider and leave the Vengeful Spirit in the pool. That seems just really bad.
It is also worth noting that Complexity are currently without Zizu. They're running with a stand-in Squee, so I'm not sure how they play with him. But either way, Leviathan are with their full 5-man roster. I think Vengeful Spirit is, by all accounts, the right pick here. It's just not worth leaving it in there. It's such a, I don't know, brick wall for Batrider to try to go through. Even though an instant Yules or something of that nature, which could come out from the Lina, or maybe it comes out from one of Complexity's other supports, is still pretty annoying to go against the Bat. It doesn't really come close to being as annoying as a swap, especially once level 11 comes out from the Vengeful Spirit. It's almost impossible to get a clean Batrider initiation if Venge is there.
Yeah, so, okay, it's not going to be that Venge. Maybe they're trying to bait Complexity into grabbing that hero, but man, I would be okay with Complexity having a Venge and a Lina. That's a 1-2 punch that will get you many kills if you're going towards the softer heroes like Lion, hell, even towards the Batrider as a support duo, or just as a Lina core. That's a dangerous combo, not to mention the anti-Batrider tech, so it is, you know, a fine opening, though, Leviathan. Like, Batrider's a really good hero, Lion's a really good hero. Put them together, and you'll be able to burst people down very, very easily, but
10 seconds
I would rather, like, see them grab the Venge here. They have a chance to ban it out, though, as Complexity actually grabbed the Axe instead. I think that was a pretty risky gambit from Leviathan, and I think it actually paid off. I think they got what they wanted.
Yeah, I think so too. They wanted the Lion support, and they got the Lion support, and this way they aren't going to have to deal with the Venge, or at least they have the opportunity to take it away. Although an Axe initiation is really scary, especially in combination with Alina to follow up with an LSA Dragon Slave, I think this is more Complexity playing their game rather than trying to counter out Leviathan. I think Leviathan are going to be happy because of it.
Oh man, this second banning phase, so much hate towards all of the supports. Ancient Apparition and Shaker and Venge all being banned out. The Vengeful Spirit ban, that was pretty freaking obvious, but for Complexity, they're also going to take some care in getting rid of the other supports that Leviathan can possibly run. I mean, Ancient Apparition, Earthshaker, they're good heroes, but I don't really know if they were really what Leviathan were thinking of going for right now. I thought they would have picked, or banned out rather, a core from Leviathan, any core.
Yeah, potentially. Ancient Apparition might be banned out since Complexity want to go for maybe something a little bit unordinary, like a Necrophos or Morphling come to mind immediately that get countered very hard by Ancient Apparition. But Lion Ancient Apparition +1 is also a very scary aggressive combination. So maybe they just want to protect their safe lane. It's a reasonable ban, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, these heroes, they do have a pretty substantial chance of being picked, but are these the best heroes that Leviathan can possibly be picking? That is where I'm going to be questioning their bans a little bit, but not too much. Don't want to dwell on that, as Leviathan are deciding upon their secondary ban as well. If they do want to stay on the hate train for supports, it would have been a Skywrath Mage to take the ban. Amplifying Lena's damage is scary enough, but also Blink Call into a Mystic Flare will instantly get you some kills in a game of Dota. It's going to be Lancer instead. Leviathan don't really have that many great ways of dealing with the Lancer right now, so maybe they're just scared about having to deal with those many units.
Yeah, Lion really doesn't operate very well against Phantom Lancer and Batrider. It's pretty hard to actually find the real PL in the middle of a fight unless he is out completely alone in between camps while he's farming through. Leviathan will have their choice of this next pick, and I'm hoping that they go for something a little bit out of the box. For now, Lion and Batrider, although maybe not the most standard of openings. Usually Batrider is paired with Venge, usually Lion's not paired with Batrider, but they're still completely normal.
And if anyone, as far as teams are concerned, is going to be picking up something weird, I would put it to Leviathan. It's a Shadow Fiend for them, and it's not going to deviate from the norm of Dota 2 just yet. Shadow Fiend going towards mid lane, maybe matching up against Alina. It's a matchup that you see a lot more than you would really expect, and it's typically pretty darn even. So Leviathan are going to have a pretty safe time so far, but if that Lina is not played as a mid lane hero, though, if she is played as a support, if she gets some support from anyone with any sort of disabled, Rubik looking okay for here for Complexity maybe, that's a pretty aggressive roaming comp, and they could sit on the Shadow Fiend and completely crush him in lane.
5 seconds remaining.
Yeah, definitely so. It is pretty scary, especially once Lina gets her level 6 for the Shadow Fiend, and as you said, any rotations going into the SF can be very threatening. Complexity Gaming are potentially going to be very reliant on items before they're able to play aggressively. It really all depends on their supports. For now, a lot of the setup supports for Lina have been taken out of the pool, but the Skywrath Mage you were mentioning earlier is available and would be a very reasonable pick for Complexity. If you have Vision of the Batrider before he blinks in, an instant silence can stop the lasso initiation, and as you've already mentioned, the amp damage with Lina is ridiculous, as is the Mystic Flare with Axe.
Yeah, so maybe Complexity are going to want to grab that one. It is another kind of ban away from the pool of Leviathan heroes, but it's going to be a Shadow Demon instead. That's kind of peculiar. I mean, this is looking more and more like a mid lane Lina, because Shadow Demon and +1, they could combo up pretty well with the LSA, and you could roam around into the Axes lanes as well, but Shadow Demon usually partnered up with the Mirana. Maybe we're going to see something a little bit weird like Kunkka, or maybe Lina's just going to be wandering out with that Shadow Demon. But Shadow Demon versus Batrider, that is another way to kind of counter out that lasso initiation. It's a little bit more difficult, though, because Shadow Demon's range of disruption is not really the best, and you do have to put that Batrider in that bubble.
Or Demonic Purge him. He's pretty good against Bat, all things considered, but I think the thing I like most about this Shadow Demon pick is already they do have things to set up for, and there's a lot of different heroes that they could consider picking up, and a lot of flexibility to Leviathan's next is going to be a Spirit Breaker. I'm tempted to say that this is going to be offlane for Jenkins.
That is a possibility, though. That would also mean the Batrider is going to be in a safe lane, and that's fine, but Leviathan might just be running the pretty standard super aggro dual support of Spirit Breaker and Lion. Complexity, they have the Shadow Demon already, so the Spirit Breakers, Charge, and Nether Strike, they're very, let's say, highly choreographed skills. It's very clear when the Spirit Breaker is actually going to use them, so if you put your allies or yourself in a bubble, or even the Spirit Breaker, then that's a pretty easy way of shutting him down. I actually don't know if I like the Spirit Breaker pick right now. I usually am completely on board with Hero because he tends to lead to some interesting early aggression plays, but Shadow Demon brick walls the Spirit Breaker pretty darn well.
Yeah, it's making this SD look better and better for Complexity. I think the heroes to look out for Complexity to pick up next, if Delina's still going to be in the mid lane, then something along the line of a Dazzle. Okay, so there it is. It is going to be the Dazzle for Complexity. This gives you one of the scariest tri-lanes in Dota, I want to say. With an Axe, Shadow Demon, and Dazzle, you can play so very aggressively. The disruption to the heal bombs with an Axe calling you is very threatening to go up against. And the capabilities of this lane to go for creep cutting is
10
definitely there, and I'm
seconds
not sure
remaining.
Leviathan are very well equipped to combat that at the moment.
You don't even need the
5
axe there. Like
seconds
Shadow Demon
remaining.
Dazzle, that's a ton of physical damage because Shadow Wave does do quite a bit when you're guaranteed, at the
Reserve
very
time.
least, 2 illusions to bounce that wave off of. And usually you're also going to have Shadow Demon himself as an extra body, Dazzle himself as an extra body, so that would end up doing easily like 300,
10
400
seconds
damage
remaining.
physical. Up against Spirit Breaker, it's going to be blocked by his armor,
5
but everyone
seconds
else very
remaining.
vulnerable to that combo. It's a Lone Druid ban, wow, from
Dire
Leviathan.
team ban.
It's been a while since I've seen Lone Druid, so I'm kind of bummed about that. I don't really know how well it's going to work, but as you said, if Complexity go for this super aggressive axe, creep cutting shenanigans, Leviathan don't have any answer to that. They need a support who hits hard, and
10 seconds
they already
remaining.
have their 2 supports, Spirit Breaker, Lion.
Yeah, I foresee this Shadow Demon Dazzle doing a lot of work, and even if they're not partnered up with the Axe, anywhere they go, they're going to be able to find kills. Setting up for the LSA with the Lina, even though she's not a roaming support with the Shadow Demon, is so very scary, especially if the target you're setting up on is a Shadow Fiend. I'd love to see Boots First on the SD this game.
We have the Juggernaut ban out. Leviathan seemingly looking for their last core. Juggernaut would have been a pretty decent one. It is still vulnerable to this physical damage of Complexity coming out from both the spins of the axe, as well as that Dazzle Shadow Wave combo, but you might as well ban out one of the more powerful heroes in Dota while you're at it. It's going to be a Viper for Leviathan. That's actually a pretty good hero to have versus the axe, Dazzle Shadow Demon, if it really does come to that, but it will have to be the Viper in the right lane at the right time, and at the same time keeping his distance versus the Shadow Demon, because though Viper is very well suited to go against magic damage, the majority of Complexity's damage in this game is physical, especially with this Slark pick.
Yeah, and this is going to nicely round out Complexity's lineup. At the moment, their lockdown for the Slark is decent, with a Lion, Batrider, and Spirit Breaker to keep him in place. But then again, this is yet another hero that really loves having the benefit of Shadow Demon disruption to set him up in the early game. And I really do like how Complexity are building around this SD. At least in the first 10 minutes of the game, he's, I don't know, a crucial cog for them, and the defensive uses is really going to be nice against what Leviathan have, although usually he's not the hero that comes immediately to mind like, yes, this is a perfect Shadow Demon game. This gets really close to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I really have to wonder if Complexity were planning the Shadow Demon from the start with this Axe and Lina. It would, make the Lina first pick a little bit more justifiable in my eyes if they were planning on going for the Shadow Demon, because usually when we see Shadow Demon, he's with a Mirana, and that's the combo. He doesn't set up for anything else. He's like with a Viper or something like that, and Viper doesn't need setup at all. That's just not how the hero operates, but he gets set up for so many things in this game, and if he gets a disruption in any lane, as long as he's with this Dazzle, it's probably going to be a kill. Like, there's a chance that, someone bails someone else out in Leviathan with a Flame Break or an Impale or Hex or something like that, but this is a dangerous Complexity draft, and even though Leviathan, I mean, they have some pretty tanky heroes in the Viper, in the Spirit Breaker, I gotta say, I like Complexity's draft, and I think that with this draft, they're probably going to take game 1.
Yeah, it might be a little too early to call that. We'll have to see how the game ends up
I gotta
shaking
make my
down.
prediction right now, guys.
Okay, fair enough. Either way, let's introduce our lineup. Shredder is going to be playing on the Viper for the Leviathan side. Jenkins going to be taking the Batrider to the offlane. Chibi on the mid SF. And I'll leave our sporting duo, Nusham on the Spirit Breaker, and Lion played by Flying Zebra.
For Complexity, Z-Freak is going to be playing the Axe on the offlane. Zizzy is on the Slark with Riser on the Shadow Demon support. Lina does have no Talisman first, so clearly going to be played core by Swindle Melons, and following up the rear, it's going to be Squee as the supporting Dazzle. Boots first check? Oh yeah, Riser does have it, so you get what you asked for previously. It's obviously a very aggressive build from the Shadow Demon, and well, we already explained why that is going to have its merits. But will they actually be able to catch anyone? Because the Slark is going to be what looks like a mid lane Slark up against Shadow Fiend. Not exactly the best of times for this fish.
Up towards the top rune spot, Complexity can very easily contest this, but then again, Leviathan are also feeling a little bit frisky. There's going to be quite a fight here. Down towards bottom, looks like Shredder is going to get that bounty rune uncontested. Axe is nowhere close, so all eyes on top rune spot.
Zizzy feels pretty comfortable. He's like, no, there can't possibly be anyone here. The Slark does have some pretty good tools for getting out of this type of situation in Leviathan. Their stuns are a little bit clunky. Spike level 1 is really bad. Hex level 1 is amazing. Oh, and if they could catch Squee or Swindle Melons right now, that would be huge. Jenkins is going to reveal himself, and it looks like Leviathan are not going to be willing to fight this one out. It's just going to be bounty for bounty, and it's going to help the Lina get a little bit closer to her bottle.
Yeah, and that might give her the edge she needs to win out over the SF and mid. Both of them starting out with very stats-heavy builds. In fact, identical, with the exception being that Null Talisman is replaced for a Wraith Band in Shivi's inventory. But yeah, this mid lane should be pretty even. Going for Necromastery first is pretty normal for Shadow Fiend when you're going up against a Lina, as her animation really doesn't contest SF's right-clicking that much.
Yeah, so Shadow Fiend looks like he's going to get his first couple of souls without too much trouble. And then at that point, Lina has a slight base damage advantage right now, but it's most likely not going to be the case as Shadow Fiend does get more and more souls. He should be just fine over in the mid lane until the complexity roamers decide to come on in. But Riser is right now occupied in the jungle, just setting up for a couple of stacks down the line, perhaps for this axe. Although Z-Freak down in this bottom lane, he's going up against Shredder. Just with this Viper alone, it's not really the worst lane for the axe.
Yeah, it definitely could be a lot worse. Viper with support could completely crush him, although still, he's getting zoned out. Lion's running a pull, so there's no creeps coming to him immediately, but he can't contest this. Meantime, up towards top, Jenkins and Nusham are currently sitting in that lane, as both of them want to get some experience. At a certain point, I'd expect Jenkins to back off and look to farm up in the woods, but oh, poor Flying Zebra slowed down by the Battle Hunger coming out from the axe. 1 point into the spin. Will he get another spin onto Flying Zebra? The creeps are attacking him. It's not happening yet. He does get a spin, but it's not enough damage. Now he needs to run away. Tanking tower shot. Z-Freak is now being collapsed upon by the Viper coming in from the right side with the poison attack damage. It'll be more than enough. Shredder is going to draw first blood as Z-Freak goes a little too over-aggressive.
That was kind of the RNG just screwing him over, though. The creeps hit him like 6 times at the very least, and the expected value is 1 spin out of all that, but he just didn't get any. And by the time he actually did get a spin, the Lion was barely under the safety of his tier 2 tower. Battle Hunger providing some serious chasing power right there, but Z-Freak on the receiving end of bad RNG is going to have to give first blood over to the Viper. 1,000 gold now for Shredder. If he decides to go for a Midas, that probably will get some traction in this game because he simply can get it so quickly. Or he could just go for straight boots and completely lock this axe out of lane. Either way, Shredder with first blood. That's dangerous stuff for this bottom lane for complexity, and that's dangerous stuff for really all of complexity, as Viper, if he gets a fast mech or something like that, can lead to some very early doom pushes.
For sure. Well, we'll slow down a little bit. Shadow Demon for the time being has an Invis rune in mid, but SF saw that getting picked up and is going to play very defensively, or at least defensively enough to where that Invis rune isn't going to net them a kill. Lina's not close enough, and well, he'll just fall back under his tower. Although he's not actively farming for now, Shivi, this is the right move for him.
This is a really low CS game, man. Like 10 CS, unlike all these heroes. Lina and Shadow Fiend aren't really going as evenly as I thought. Window Melon's definitely getting a lot of help by the fact that Riser did take that Invis rune, because Shadow Fiend was playing so defensively, out of necessity, for sure, but Lina's leading the CS chart, and she does have her bottle already, got that one very, very early on. It looks like she's just going to grab Boots, Eul Scepter, and then just be on her way. She's not really going up against that much pressure, as Leviathan have yet to really charge out with Nusham. He's, by the way, going to get jumped up on top lane. Shadow Wave going to nuke him down pretty darn low, but Jenkins is up in the Firefly, gets put into a bubble, and there might be a pounce waiting for him. Just physical right clicks for now. Jenkins going to try to rush everyone. Is Squeak going to pop the grave on himself? Now literally cannot die. Jenkins deep into the trees is going to try to salve up, but he's going to run out of Firefly and he will go down. That was pretty bold from the Batrider. Maybe was hoping that Squeak did not grab a point in Shallow Grave, but it's a level 3 Dazzle. Odds are he has that grave.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. At that point, I think he's probably dead and just trying to make the best out of that situation that he could. At this point, I think Batrider is probably going to end up going to the woods, but no, he's actually going to show his face back in lane again, feeling that it's safe enough, although I'm not sure if I share his optimism. The axe has already gone back into the jungle, and he was able to farm up a stack that was prepared to him previously by his supports, and is now sitting at almost level 5. This is one of the disadvantages of going for a dual lane. Any experience that the offlane does get is pretty limited. Jenkins going to look to interrupt this farming, but he's going to find axe farming mud golems. That really doesn't help that much, but this large stack definitely would. That's a triple stack if Jenkins can get away with stealing this. The supports are going to come in from the right side, Lina coming in from the south. She does have an LSA, and well, let's see if they're going to be able to connect with it. The Shadow Demon is a little bit too far away. The Disruption doesn't come out, and Jenkins is going to be able to make it out alive, although Disruption is eventually going to connect as they go for Nusham over on the sidelines. He's going to be able to charge away to the creep wave and make it out alive, although only just the Dazzle is there and could very easily get this killed. One auto attack he will, and Axe actually gets the last hit.
Right, on a silver platter for this Dazzle. The right place at the right time. One right click and you get a kill. That's the life for the Dazzle. That was very much so a wild goose chase from Jenkins. I mean, he drew a whole bunch of complexity heroes into the jungle. I guess he kind of got his Nusham Spirit Breaker friend killed, but that was still a lot of time where complexity were not actively farming the lanes. They were trying to contest the Bat Rider, who was trying to contest the hard stack, but Bat Rider can't even kill off that hard stack because he needs so much more time in order to lay down that napalm. So really Jenkins wasn't really seriously stealing that stack. He's going to try to jack another pull, but with that Firefly only being level 2 with only 1 point in tar, he's actually not doing that much, and he got hit with a pretty hard Shadow Wave. He has to retreat again. Does he have Tranquils? He doesn't. So does this Bat Rider just have to base now? He just came back out to the lane, and he's doing his best to be disruptive and everything like that, but this is costing him his own farm.
He does have his Tranquils. Now, Nusham has a Tango that he could give to him in theory, but the real winners in that last exchange, even though the Spirit Breaker ends up dying, are Viper and the Shadow Fiend, as they've been farming throughout the entire meantime. And while SF is now completely caught up to the Lina, and now with the charge in, Lina might be in some trouble. Nusham isn't going to cancel this, but Riser is with the disruption. Invis Rune picked up by Shibby. He is there with a couple of raises, going to drop 1-2 into Riser, and he's going to be raised down to the ground. Shibby going to right-click Squee a couple of times. Actually, getting his kill is pretty hard, especially with an LSA landing. And while the Light Strike Array is going to cleanly disengage, or at least it looks like it, Nusham has another charge cooling down and can go for it. They are going to diving tier 2s. They have another raise going to connect. Double raise is going to be a double kill for Shibby. And now Nusham, with his high base armor, is going to be able to get out there alive. They are bringing the Shadow Demon to the tier 1 tower, but it's not enough to really stop this. Nusham's going to go for a neutral deny. He's already spent his gold and will lose nothing because of it. Excuse me.
Man, Shibby now 2-0 and 0, 30 CS, and he's perfectly tied up with the Lina as far as that is concerned, but man, those 2 kills helping out so much. That was a very aggressive dive from Leviathan, but again, that's something that Spirit Breaker enables you to do. I thought that the Charge of Darkness wouldn't stun for long enough and that there would have been enough time to get out with those heroes without at least save the Dazzle, but no, that's done, lasted long enough for that double raise, and double raise, now level 4, it does a hell of a lot of damage when you're talking about going up against a level 4 hero like that. It really seems unfair, but Viper and Shadow Fiend doing fantastically for the Leviathan side, and so far for complexity, though the Shadow Demon has been walking around a whole lot, we haven't really seen him set up for much of anything like we were describing in the draft.
Yeah, 1-1-1, it's pretty lackluster performance. Viper's gone for a hand of Midas because he can. I think this is fine from Shredder. I don't really expect going for the mechanism earlier or anything of the sort would have allowed them to group up and push, and he's not going to be slowed down that hard. Zephyr catches a full creep wave, and the Viper gets 2 spins. Is that enough, however? Disruption is going to delay it as they go for flying Zebra. Lina's coming in from the sideline. Shredder is not going to be Culling Bladed down, and he is able to get the Midas, but does die just the same. Zephyr, taking down to the poison, survives on 12 HP. The Spirit Breaker, however, is coming in from the charge, will kill him on impact over in the sidelines. They will be able to kill off the Lion as well, making it a 2-for-1 trade. Can the Spirit Breaker make it out safely? It looks like he can. Nusham will TP back up towards top lane.
Giving away your axe in exchange for killing off the Viper, that in and of itself for complexity is definitely worth it. Not to mention the bonus Lion kill and all of it going towards the Lina. Really just a lack of vision here for Leviathan. Like, they have no vision on the bottom half of the map pretty much at all. It's just all blind. So the fact that Viper was out there that far, he was kind of asking to get ganked, and well, Lina was more than happy to oblige. So Lina getting away with a hell of a lot of extra experience and gold because of it. Already Laguna Blade is up, and Swindlemelons has yet to use it. It might be a little bit of a strain on his mana pool after having gone for phase boots, but this Lina is packing some serious heat, and with the Shadow Demon having that Soul Catcher amplification, they could realistically 100-0 people very easily with Swindlemelon's combo.
A big tool for Leviathan's going to come up with just one more creep kill up towards top lane. Nusham now has his level 6. With the Nether Strike, Leviathan can feasibly go pretty aggressive themselves. Even though the Lina is doing a lot of damage, so is Shibby, and so is the Viper, even though he's gone for a hand of Midas. Speaking of that item, Slark's also going to pick one up, so currently both teams running with 1 Midas, although the Vipers came out quite a bit faster.
Even though the Viper got his Midas first, I think Midas on Slark is overall just better. He makes use of the attack speed a lot better with that Essence Shift, and a 6-slotted Slark is pretty darn scary, whereas a 6-slotted Viper, not as much so. So even though it's like a 3-4 minute difference between the Midases, pretty sure the effectiveness on the item on the hero Slark is just going to make it so that Zizzy isn't really going to be slowed down too much by the lateness of this item. So he's going to be taking away, and Complexity are going to be setting up for potentially a little bit more of a late game strategy. I don't really know if that's the best sort of idea up against what Leviathan have, but maybe they just use this Hand of Midas to transition into a Shadow Blade and then really get Zizzy roaming around the map.
Well, let's see if they're going to be able to end up activating this Slark. Batrider is still saving up for his Blink Dagger. He's about halfway there, and the Blink Dagger status for Complexity is a little bit faster on Z-Freak after being involved in a handful of kills. Spiritbreaker is looking for an angle to charge up towards top, but killing off ZZ is not really an option, especially when he has the Dazzle behind him. But killing off the Dazzle might.
I don't even know if you could kill off ZZ even if he doesn't have the Dazzle behind him. Like, he'll have Pounce, he'll have Dark Pack to get rid of anything that you throw at him, and then he just mashes his ultimate button, and then there's nothing else you could do. So ZZ, though, is still being pressured nonetheless. Like, he's not comfortably last hitting and not worrying about anyone. He really has to play a little bit further back, and it's making him miss a little bit of extra gold there. I don't know if it's worth having Jenkins and Nusham stand around doing nothing in the meantime, but the Slark is definitely being slowed down, whereas for the Viper and for Shibby, the Shadow Fiend, they're still just happily farming away. There is a mech available to the Shadow Fiend, and he is going to grab that one as soon as it flies out to him. Maybe Leviathan are going to look to do something with this mech, probably, though, after Jenkins grabs his Blink, which he is not too far away from, but he hasn't really been jungling at all in this game, so the fact that he has 1,500 gold is actually pretty cool for the Bat.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the Spirit Breaker pick up a smoke, since he has been sitting on this level 6 for about 2 minutes now, and maybe look for a gank onto mid lane, although it's not the easiest. I think with smoke, maybe they could have pulled it off, and Swindlemelons may or may not have expected it. Down towards bottom lane, they're going to find a jump onto Z-Freak, stunned up, but instead they go for the Nether Strike onto Riser, trying to kill off both of them. Riser's dropped down in a heartbeat, and now after the Shadow Demon Disruption, perfectly timed Earth Spike's going to fly through. Z-Freak's going to get the call up, but it's not going to save you from Finger of Death. Squee walks forward and ends up getting charged and raised down. It's going to be 3 kills for Leviathan.
Wow, suddenly a whole million of Leviathan heroes are going to rotate into the bottom lane, and Complexity just were not ready, despite the fact that, well, Axe is Axe. He is very, very tanky. He also has his Blink Dagger now. Shadow Demon has his Disruption for defensive purposes. Dazzle is loaded in defensive skills. It just wasn't enough to keep this Axe alive because the focus fire on Leviathan was absolutely perfect. They try to get they initiate on the Axe, but they go for the Shadow Demon, and then they go for the Dazzle and ignore really the large threatening damage dealing hero and go for these defensive supports. So it was a brilliantly orchestrated fight by Leviathan because they called their shots very, very well, and now they're going to get rewarded with a tier 2 tower, and that's going to give the Batrider a Blink, who, because he survived the Slark on the top lane, so that is going to help out towards his Blink. So that was perfect focus fire from Leviathan. It pretty much doesn't get much better than that.
No, it really doesn't. Now, after the fact, Leviathan are prepped to look for some pretty aggressive moves. Mech on Shadow Fiend, now a DD Rune 2 for Shibby. I think going for these tier 1s in mid and top is probably going to be the next order of business, and they can do it very effectively. Although, maybe not in mid, there are a lot of heroes sitting behind this Lina ready to jump. There's a Blink Dagger in the Axe, but they're not going to react in time to Disruption, although it will delay any damage applied to Swindlemelons. I don't think they care. Blinking from the Axe catches out 3, which is pretty good. They'll look for the Culling Blade onto the Spirit Breaker, don't get it. Swindlemelons eventually going to take down the poison damage. No, they do get the Yule Scepter. Raze is going to miss, doesn't matter, ends up getting Hex down, and Raze just the same. It's a Sports Spirit Breaker for a mid Lina. By every account, that's a good trade for Leviathan.
Yeah, and they could even go for a little bit more because they do still have the double damage and the mech on the SF. Looks like they will call it quits for right now, but what we just saw right there was the weakness of this Shadow Demon pick versus the Batrider. He needs to be very close in order to get the Disruption on Batrider, and that's really what you want to be doing to cancel out the initiation. Even if you do get the Disruption on your ally, yeah, whoever is in that bubble is not taking any damage, but they're also getting dragged out. Don't know how that makes sense, but that's how Dota works, and the Lina being in such a bad position, there really was nothing that she could do about it. Batrider is going to blink away from certain doom as Nusham most likely is going to cancel this charge. He's going to man up. No man up just yet. But with this Batrider lasso cooling down, Leviathan are probably going to look to make that exact fight happen again in just a little while.
Yeah, pretty much, and we'll have to see if they're able to put it together. Shibby is going to be going for an ultimate order item, probably Scotty, I want to say, for the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably going to be Scotty, but really any ultimate orb item is good on the Shadow Fiend, and he's really going for this more tanky-oriented build along with this Viper, so Leviathan are just looking to out-sustain the Complexity side. And I think that's actually a pretty good idea. When you have like a Spirit Breaker especially, he'll be able to lock down someone and just if you're able to sustain through the fights, you get more stun value. Whoa, Jenkins is going to blink right in, but he's going to get stunned before you get the real initiation off. They get the Hex onto Z-Freak as he tries to blink in. Another strike and Finger of Death. Goodbye, Axe. It's a 1-for-1 so far as Riser trying to get into a corner, though. Shredder, Shibby, and Nusham all right on his tail. He'll put himself in a bubble. LSA maybe going to buy the Shadow Demon a little bit more room, but you can't really outlast up against the Viper and the Shadow Fiend. Now the charge in. Nusham's going to connect onto 2 with that. Swindlemelon's being focused down, throwing an LSA wide, and he will be surviving, though, with his Yules, but Zizzy's the one in real trouble now. Has to go into a Shadow Dance, really wants to get Nusham, but he also has to retreat. It's going to be Squee on the run, and he will be the one to drop as Shibby draws a double kill. They see Zizzy, and they're going to charge right back in. Nusham, Balls of Steel right now, is going to get a lucky bash. Here comes Shibby. Raise 1 is going to get the kill. Spirit Breaker, man, you turned around and he gets a kill as well. That fight was, again, amazing for Leviathan, despite the fact that Jenkins had his initiation absolutely brick-walled. That just means he still has it, so that they could go for even more if they really wanted to.
A really slick fight coming out from Leviathan. Again, they're just out-sustaining complexity, and the defensive power of their heroes just isn't enough. And there's your Blink Lasso. They were talking about Swindlemelons blown sky high with a handful of raises and 1 attack from Shredder. They'll be able to bring him down. Now Riser's just getting dove at by the Viper. There's nothing they can do to stop this, really. They'll demonically purge him up, but Riser's still dropping down. They just need a little bit more damage, and they'll find it. He dies in the shadow of his tier 3, and everybody from Leviathan live. There's nothing that they could do.
And when you dive a tier 2 like that and you don't lose anyone, in fact you gain kills, you know that you're in a good position. Shredder was even working with only 2 points in Nether Toxin at the time, yet his damage was huge. I guess it's not really fair because Shadow Demon's level 6 and Shredder's level 13, so I guess any hero that with that level discrepancy would be doing a lot of damage, but Viper now has an Aghanim Scepter. How are you supposed to kill this Viper? And you have to focus him, so it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for complexity. I really think they were very heavily reliant on the Shadow Demon setup combo for the early stage in the game, and it just seems like right now, despite the fact that they do have a Blink Dagger on Axe, it's just not good enough because they're not getting the initiations off. The Axe is counter-initiating, and that's fine and everything, but with Leviathan going so tanky, you could blink into a Viper, but he has 10 armor and 1500 HP. You're not going to be doing that much as an Axe.
Another big issue that I've seen with complexity this game is that they haven't really used the Lina very much. She's 4-2-1 and isn't doing terribly, but the amount of times that we've seen a Yule Scepter initiation or a Laguna Blade actually cast is very limited, and unfortunate for Swindlemelons. With so much emphasis put on the Shadow Demon, the Axe, and the Lina, complexity really haven't been able to find those fights, and it's going to get really hard. Leviathan have a good team that's a team that's good for controlling the map globally, with Spiritbreaker and Batrider always with the constant threat of ganking you.
Mid lane, Shibby, Flying Zebra both can hit with the LSA. Swindlemelons, though, hit with the stun. Finger of Death coming in, but it won't be in time to get the kill. Shibby's, though, still standing strong. He's going to go straight for Z-Freak. Although the Weave is going to buy him a little bit of HP. Here comes Nusham. He's going to side better of it because they see the Shadow Demon. Swindlemelons gets to live, but gets fingered in the face. I don't even know if we've seen a single Laguna Blade in this game, and if we have, it hasn't really been too impressive. He tries to go for the Yule Scepter setup on the Shadow Fiend, but Shadow Fiend has 1600 HP. Strength Treads, double ulti orb. This guy has so much HP that at this point, I don't even know if the Lina can bring anyone down, despite the fact that it will be amplified by a level 1 Soul Catcher. Maybe. It just doesn't seem like enough, at least, yeah, unless she loses her Laguna Blade, but Swindlemelon just hasn't found a good chance to use it. I think we've seen more fingers than we've seen Laguna Blades.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Really, the Lion's the only one they can kill, and as long as Flying Zebra sits behind his tanky frontline, I don't think it's going to happen. Either way, it's not going to stop Complexity from trying. By no means are they out of this game. They still have a pretty farmed Slark who's sitting on a Hand of Midas, but this Hand of Midas hasn't built into anything after the fact yet, whereas for the Viper, he's gotten his Ags, and the Shadow Fiend, after going for the mech, now has his completed Eye of Scotty. They're going to smoke up his 3, look down towards bottom, charging. Well, where are they going into? Looks like it's going to be on the Lina. There's a Shadow Demon Axe and Dazzle close by, and the charge is going to be cancelled by Nusham, deciding that it's probably better not to go into that just yet.
Yeah, Nusham diving in a little bit too far is a great way for Leviathan to lose that fight, especially since their Batrider is up on the top lane. I don't think he can get a kill on the Slark, so I don't really know what Jenkins is planning here. Just going to try to distract him with a little bit of fire on the ground, get a little bit of farm, and try to pull the Complexity heroes away from bottom lane towards top. Nusham's on the charge once again, and he's using it to move around places. Shibby, Shredder alone on the bottom lane. This is kind of pointless. There's no tier 2 tower here, so I don't really know what Leviathan are doing with these 2 heroes, but they could be looking for these other tier 2s. Complexity, though, they're going to smoke up. They know that Jenkins is playing games on the top lane, and they're going to look to put an end to it. If they land a Yule Scepter on the Batrider, he's just dead.
But for the time being, Bat's going to back off into the area between his tier 1 and tier 2, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to find him. Ideally, they would have caught him out while he was farming that large camp, but, well, he's back to safety. The smoke from Complexity looks like it's not going to find anything. Shadowblade's going to be item of choice for Zizi. I'm not sure I'm completely on board with it, but maybe this is what Complexity need to start getting some kills, and with these item builds, they desperately need to.
But again, who are you actually going to be jumping as the Slark? Like, it's possible to kill off a Bat Rider, I suppose, and the Lion as well, but if you Shadowblade into a Shadow Fiend or a Viper, you're just not going to have enough damage unless literally your entire team is there. So this Shadowblade, as far as single target pickoffs, which is what you want for the ideal situation for a Slark with Shadowblade, it's just not really viable unless it's on the Lion. So poor Flying Zebra, he has to be very afraid now that Zizi has shown off his Shadowblade, but with a Sentry or with a gem, put it on one of the tanky heroes, this Shadowblade probably isn't going to be doing all that much.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to say so as well. At the moment, Leviathan's map vision is a little bit lackluster. They have one ward in mid, and to be fair, it's spotting out a decent amount of movements from Complexity, but I'd like to see them try and get some more aggressive vision out. The Dire do have a decent amount inside the mid lane as well, but yeah, for the time being, both teams would like to get a little bit more control over this map.
Well, for right now, Leviathan, they're going to take control by force by killing off the enemy tier 2s. Where's the Bat Rider? He's really far away. Nusham's pretty far away as well, but Complexity know that they are pretty sizably behind right now. 10k gold, 10k experience, in fact. So Leviathan, they walk in, and they walk out with a tier 2. Do they have enough damage to convincingly take out Roshan? They probably can get away with it, but it seems like they're going to first make sure that Zizi is out. Yeah, they're just going to find themselves in the Roche pit, and here's the chance for Complexity to actually make some plays. They don't really have that much time, because though the Leviathan are gearing up very defensively as far as their items are concerned, they're still doing a lot of damage because they're simply such a high level.
Yeah, and Shadow Fiend and Viper innately do a decent amount of damage against Roshan. With the Scotty slow, they'll find themselves a second life for Shibi, and are now primed to fight. There was no real opportunity for Complexity unless they were there immediately, but if they were, a 4-man Axe Call with an LSA to follow up could have been a really sick combo, but it didn't come out. That's going to be nothing but an advantage for Leviathan, as they're starting to rack up their net worth at about 10,000 lead in their favor in that metric, and about just shy of 10,000 in the experience.
So Leviathan, they walked in and grabbed a tier 2 tower. They're maybe going to lose Shredder up on top lane, though. Blink in from Z-Freak. Zizi is here as well. Shredder taking a hell of a lot of damage. Cole, not there, but not needed. But here comes the cavalry. Nusham going to go straight for Z-Freak. Finger of Death there, and Dazzle can't get the shield up in time. He'll be burst down with the raise as well. Is there anything else that Leviathan can do to chase? It looks like they're going to try with Jenkins blinking forward, smoke for a little bit of movement speed, but Jenkins dodges smoke, gets a little bit too far away. Still, he's on the chase for Swindlemelons, who has a Yule Scepter, so Lina should be able to run out of this, but they trade the Viper for 2, and that was supposed to be a free pick for Complexity. It might not even be over yet. Swindlemelon stopped to farm. They see the LSA, but Jenkins is not flying just yet. He'll find Riser instead. There's an Impale waiting for him, and a Spirit Breaker coming in. Riser has a chance to live if he puts himself in the bubble, but he can't even get that one out. The charge actually goes towards Swindlemelons. Suddenly, this Lina's got to get a good LSA. She will slow down Nusham enough, but Jenkins is right on her tail. Shibi closing in pretty swiftly as well with the rest of that smoke, but Jenkins is going to decide to call it quits, and they will decide to back off. But still, it's a fantastic trade in favor of Leviathan. They still have control of this Aegis on Shibi, who was under no pressure the entire time. And if you're going to die as a Viper, that's how you want to do it.
Yeah, it really is. A 1-for-3 trade. That was supposed to be amazing for Complexity. Even if they lost 2 of their supports, I think it's still alright for them. Definitely subpar. But they end up losing their Axe too. It was pretty sloppy, and there just wasn't enough for them to get that cleanly. Leviathan are very mobile when it comes to their movements around the map, and that's shown. Charging up towards top, looking at the Axe, they might be able to find Z-Freak. I'm not sure if the Slark saw this in transit, but it doesn't matter. He's going to pop the Blade Mail. That doesn't save you. Spirit Breaker is just going to mend hell up, and he will do so. Pounce over onto Jenkins. Jenkins going to drop down in the Fire and the Flames. They'll Earth Spike him up, however, through the ultimate. Now Zizi is in a very big amount of trouble as he gets bashed by Nusham and double raised by Shibi. Godlike spree for the Shadow Fiend as he's almost at his butterfly.
Man, Shadow Fiend has not died in this game. Up against the Shadow Demon and the Lina, that's almost completely unheard of, but Shibi is, as you said, packing some serious damage right now, not to mention Shredder's damage output. He has a Yasha, and he has a Hyperstone on the Courier. So they've gone for these tanky items to start out with, but now they're going to start to gear up on damage output, and still their focus fire is, I think, what's winning them the game. They're going to blink forward. Spike is going to be dodged by Yule Scepter, but Swindlemelon's going to land right into a Requiem. Lena's got to just book it, but she can't. Squee in the meantime is under a lot of pressure by Nusham. He's going to be forced to use the Grave on Lena, but he will go down in exchange. Flying Zebra also probably going to go down here, but here comes the cavalry in the form of Shredder. Long range on that Viper Strike onto Riser. Axe has arrived, but what can he do up against so many heroes? He can do nothing but watch his allies die. It's a double kill for Shredder. Still Shibby is holding onto this Aegis. And Complexity, they're taking whatever kills they can. It's kind of out of necessity, though, because they simply can't afford to focus this Aegis Shadow Fiend or this really tanky Viper. Suddenly the tier 2 tower is down up on top lane, and the tier 3 is going to take some heat, should survive. Well, actually, no, the Batrider is going to arrive. Leviathan, they might get Raxus here if they can find a great team fight, but I don't know. It's going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, this probably isn't Raxus for them, but at the very least, I think Tier 3 is going to fall in their favor. Complexity need to fight, and they need to fight now. This is an opportunity where they might be able to catch Leviathan off guard. They're going to commit for the melee barracks in its entirety, but where's the opportunity for an Axe call? They're not grouped up enough. The Axe is going to call in, but doesn't even catch Shredder with Blink and Lasso. They're going to focus down Z-Break. Shredder's surviving with a Mac application from the Shadow Fiend. He's still going to be on the backlines and will live through it. The ultimate comes out from Slark, as does Grave. The melee barracks are only at half HP, but ZZ ends up TPing out. There's nothing they can do any further if they just focus down these melee barracks. Leviathan are probably going to take a pretty big win here. Shibi's going to be dropped low. Swindlemelons does have the Laguna Blade, but she's going to get fingered up by the Lion. Flying Zebra might end up losing his life in trade for the melee barracks, but Leviathan get nothing but wins if they can get out cleanly, and even though they're all low HP, it looks like they will.
Shibby not going to get Yules or Blind LSA'd. Flying Zebra joined as the weakest right now, and he's just trying to get away. Slark with the Shadow Blade is in hot pursuit. They slow down to kill a ward. Nusham is pretty darn fast once he has that haste up, but Swindlemelons is pretty fast as well. Flame Break and a bumper back, and it's going to be a clean retreat for Leviathan. Are you kidding me? They don't lose anybody in the grand scheme of things. That Viper taking all the focus, yet was tanky enough with that mech to survive all that, and I guess luckily for Complexity, they get away with many of their heroes as well. Like this time Leviathan, they were struggling a little bit more to actually, do well in that fight because it was the Axe to initiate first, and Jenkins had to try to counter-initiate as the Batrider. It's definitely not what you want to be doing, but despite that, Leviathan, they walk in, take Raxus very, very easily, might I add, and then they back off without a hitch. Looking at their items now, still the Hyperstone is up on the Viper. Not much of anything else since then. Both 2,000 gold in his bank account. If he gets an AC right now, the next push is going to be a cakewalk for Leviathan. And Shadow Fiend, with a completed Butterfly, is now going to be working on some lifesteal. That's a lot of net worth on Leviathan's heroes. And Complexity, what do they have? A Sanj on Slark? That's going to do next to nothing.
Yeah, it really is. It was a pretty risky gamble from Leviathan, but it pays off in a big way. They've taken sub 30-minute racks up towards top. And even though the range barracks doesn't die, it's at 371 HP. If anybody as much as blows on that, it's going to end up falling down, and eventually the creeps will take it out. Shadow Demon gets caught out by the lasso and will get blown up by the Leviathan team. There's nothing that Dazzle can do in that situation with no mobility items on Squee.
And now they just place sentries and observers up on this high ground, but Jenkins, with the gem, with the flying vision from his Firefly, is going to get rid of that in a hurry. Oh, Zizzy, he's charged up on top. If they lose this Lark, there's another push incoming for sure towards the Complexity base. There's the initial hit, there's the Nether Strike. However, the Spirit Breaker all alone is still messing up the Slark's face right now. Raise number 1 is going to miss, but Flame Break will not. Right on top of the Slark, and that nuke will kill him off. 1 minute where the Slark is down in Leviathan. They're going to gear up for a mid lane push now. Top lane also pushing in. I don't think they have to do much to take down these range racks. Most likely the creeps are going to be finishing that one off. But Complexity, this is time for a miracle defense. They need like a 3-4 man call into the same for an LSA. A lot of things have to go right for Complexity in order to win this fight.
In all honesty, even if they get that 3-man call in LSA, there's no guarantee that they win the fight afterwards unless their play is immaculate. So right now they're under a lot of pressure. Shredder's going to be sitting on the high ground, although he doesn't have the AC complete, is still very tanky. Yule Scepter is going to be used defensively on the Lena, dodging a Viper Strike, but Shredder has plenty of those. Finger of Death and an Earth Spike over in the sidelines, kills off the Shadow Demon, no time flat. Shredder is going to lose his life to the Laguna Blade and LSA combination as they lasso and pull back the poor Dazzle. Flame Break going to be wide towards the left as they chase down Squee, but with another Earth Spike, they're going to be be able to do him in. And now in the meantime, Shibi going to wind a Requiem. He decides better of it. His Swindle is a little bit too far away on the Lina, but they'll just focus down the racks. This is going to be a second racks for them. Dual Scepter going to cancel the Requiem channeling yet again, but the Lina's in a whole heap of trouble with the Blink in, Earth Spike, and the Nether Strike to secure the kill. Nushim finds it. That's a good call, but is it good enough? Z-Freak's not getting enough spin, so he'll be able to dunk down one, and that's pretty good. Now ZZ is coming in, but the Requiem is reducing his damage to next to nothing. Now Earth Spiked up is going to be right-clicked down by Shibi with one raise and one more smack of the flamey, shadowy stuff that he's throwing out. It's going to be enough to kill off the Slark, and now the barracks are dropping low. Swindlemelon's hexed up. Disruption's going to delay this. The racks still aren't down. It's not over for Complexity, but it very well might be soon. They'll blink in, they get a call, but this time it's on Shibi with the Blade Mail. They're doing a decent amount of damage, but they'll charge over through all three of them. They'll kill off the Shadow Fiend. Z-Freak's still alive, but with an urn, one more smack from the Spirit Breaker. Maybe it's enough. The Grave's going to delay as the Axe is being an absolute man through this engagement, but now that his Grave is worn off, he will be sent to the grave like a man. They do not defend their melee barracks. They end up going down, but maybe they can catch Nushim on the retreat. They'll catch Vision of him with another stack of Shadow Poison. Nushim in a bit of a pickle here. The second stack of Shadow Poison is not going to land. Trying to TP out. Do they have a way to cancel it? I don't think so. The Poison Touch does not set in, and he's back at home safe.
That was the best fight that Complexity have had, but it costed them a buyback on Lina, and they all died. Like, all of their heroes died in the course of that. They took out the Viper first and foremost, and that's great and everything, but Shadow Fiend's the real damage dealer. He was dropped very low, and Axe did get some pretty great calls in the midst of that, but I mean, look at the end result. The base and Complexity is completely messed up. Mid lane completely gone for Axe's. Top lane the exact same because those creeps were pushing in the entire time. It was a messy fight for sure. It was an elongated fight, but I think MVP out of all that was Flying Zebra on the Lion. He was always there. He was not focused down during the entire time. He started things off by killing off the Shadow Demon just by himself with a simple blink, spike, finger of death. And then he was just constantly blinking in and blinking out, force staffing every which way. And he got so many stuns off. Flying Zebra on his Lion play, that was just absolutely beautiful to watch. But now Leviathan, they're going to go for Roshan, which is, I think that was a short Roshan timer, at least it feels like it. At the very least for Complexity, it's going to feel like it, as they can do nothing but wait for the inevitable push to come from Leviathan. And Leviathan, with this Aegis, are going to look to win the game, probably through the bottom lane.
Yeah, I'd say so too. They have the Assault Cuirass now off for Shredder and a Helm of the Dominator fresh up for the Shadow Fiend. All of the items are there for Leviathan, and nothing new has been picked up by the Slark except for an S and Y. This Midas is not paying off for ZZ. They're going to smoke up, and I think this is probably Complexity's final desperation move that they can make. But with Leviathan's positioning right now, they're grouped up, and there's nothing that Complexity could end up catching out here. They're going to have to do a defense the old-fashioned way. Maybe this wraparound with the Axe is going to do it for them. However, he's going to look for this initiation, but Batrider's over in the sidelines, and maybe they lose somebody in their base. If they catch out ZZ, this could all be over. They're going to get the full wraparound. Axe going to blink in, but he only catches Shredder. You can't focus down the Viper by himself, but with a Laguna Blade plus the amp coming out from the Shadow Demon, you can't apparently. And now they'll jump in. The Earthspike connects onto everybody, though, with two raises flying through all of that. It's going to be Z-Freak to end up losing his life. Slark's going to fly over the top, but a GG call, a very anticlimactic one at that, too, is going to be tapped out by Complexity.
And when you get cleaned up so many consecutive times, you have to go for that wraparound play. It's a little bit more Hail Mary, but that's pretty much exactly what Complexity had to do in that situation. They really couldn't afford to fight in a heads-up fight, so catching someone out of position, they said their best bet, but it just did not work out very well for them. Amazing Lion play. The Shadow Fiend was on point as well with, of course, a 12-1-9 score, but Leviathan, they are going to take game one. Even though I said in the draft Complexity had Leviathan's number, it seemed like that wasn't the case in this game. I think Complexity sitting a little bit too passively in the early stages, let Leviathan get their farm up, and, well, that's going to lead to a 32-minute win. But we're not done here, guys. This is a best of 3, so we'll go into game 2 as soon as that lobby is up, and we'll see if Leviathan can close out Complexity in a quick 2-0. I'm Mikelorus. I've been joined by GrandisV, and we'll be right back.